He lived in a luxury hotel in Birmingham, drove a Bentley, kept bodyguards, and stayed off the grid. No social media, no media presence. Just a name, Thomas Bomber Kavanagh, and a silent authority known to everyone in the UK's criminal underworld. Kavanagh was not just another drug trafficker, he was a linchpin between Ireland's Kinahan Cartel and the British market. Tens of millions of pounds flowed through his hands: cocaine, weapons, amphetamines. All of it funneled through seemingly ordinary logistics companies that, at first glance, appeared unremarkable. For years, he remained in the shadows. Authorities knew of him, but couldn't pin him down. It wasn't until 2019, after a major international operation, that police broke through his protective circle. What followed was almost cinematic. Boxes with false bottoms, trucks with fake invoices, tens of thousands of pounds in cash hidden in suitcases, crates of weapons shipped through the Port of London disguised as kitchenware. In 2022, he was sentenced to 21 years in prison. By 2025, a new investigation began, not just for smuggling, but for ties to Dubai operations, shadow offshore accounts, and commissioned weapons shipments to Europe. Kavanagh is no longer silent. Through his lawyers, he's threatening to reveal names long considered untouchable. Thomas Kavanagh was born in Ireland, and from his teenage years was immersed in street crime circles. His nickname Bomber was no accident, earned for his reputation as someone who resolved conflicts decisively. By his 30s, he was a key ally of Christy Kinahan, head of the Kinahan Cartel, one of the largest criminal networks operating out of Ireland, Spain, and Dubai. Kavanagh oversaw UK operations. Unlike other members, he shunned publicity. His role was strategic, organizing routes, securing shipments, laundering money. He controlled cocaine and weapon supply channels to the UK, collaborating with local crime groups in Birmingham, Manchester, and Liverpool. He lived in the presidential suite at Birmingham's Hyatt Regency, always with security and a private exit. Police knew of him, but struggled for years to gather enough evidence. He operated cautiously. No personal phones, no digital footprints, rare public appearances. All negotiations went through intermediaries, all money through shell accounts. Yet his name kept surfacing in other investigations. In several seized phones with encrypted messages, he was referenced as the big fella or the man. He appeared in cases tied to weapons shipments to Scotland, logistics from Rotterdam, and evidence cleanups after major deliveries. The NCA estimates that from 2015 to 2020, Kavanagh's network handled goods worth over £30 million, part drugs, part weapons and ammunition. These were supported by a complex web of shell companies, rented warehouses, and fronted drivers. His downfall came with Operation Venetic, the 2020 breach of the encrypted platform EncroChat. Thousands of intercepted messages allowed the NCA to map a network with Kavanagh as a central figure. His name wasn't mentioned directly, but his communication style, codes, instructions, and routes pointed to him. This was the beginning of the end. Kavanagh's scheme ran like clockwork. Contraband entered the UK from continental Europe, mainly through the ports of Rotterdam and Antwerp, shipped by trucks across the Channel. Officially, these were furniture, construction materials, or machinery parts. In reality, they hid stashes in panel interiors, hollow doors, or pallets with false bottoms. Police later found cocaine, MDMA, heroin, and semi-automatic weapons inside these shipments. A typical route: goods loaded in Belgium, crossed the Channel in UK-plated vehicles, and unloaded at warehouses in the Midlands, in industrial zones of Birmingham, Walsall, and Coventry. Each warehouse used a shell company registered under third parties, often unemployed individuals, migrants, or nominal directors with no control. Proceeds were funneled through offshore accounts in Cyprus, the United Arab Emirates, and Panama. Some funds returned as cash, leading to the first arrests. In 2019, the National Crime Agency, NCA, with support from Ireland's Garda and Europol, conducted synchronized raids. At homes and warehouses linked to Kavanagh, they seized 15 firearms, including automatics, over 66 pounds, 30 kilograms of cocaine. nearly £300,000 in cash, secure mobile devices connected to EncroChat, Corny. In a warehouse on the outskirts of West Midlands, police found shipping documents mixing real and fake cargo, one legitimate container for every 2 smuggling loads. The evidence was so precise that police traced about 40 shipments over the prior 18 months. Kavanagh was in the UK at the time. When summoned for questioning, he refused to testify. But the evidence was enough to arrest him and press charges. What struck investigators was the level of discipline and security in his operation. Each member followed a protocol detailing how to act during raids, which codes to use, how to destroy phones, and where to store backup SIM cards. One arrested driver confessed he was paid £5,000 per shipment, unaware of the client's identity. Thomas Kavanagh's trial began in early 2022 at Manchester Crown Court. He faced charges of running an international crime network, smuggling drugs and firearms, and laundering illicit proceeds. Alongside him were 2 close associates, Gary Vickery and Daniel Canning, both of whom took plea deals, admitting guilt for reduced sentences. Over 2 weeks, the court heard testimony from NCA, Europol, and criminal logistics experts. Dozens of documents, cargo photos, and financial transfer data were presented. The most damning evidence came from matching EncroChat messages to shipment routes. Every chat aligned precisely with discovered deliveries. Codes, ciphers, and geolocations all pointed to one coordinator. The court also heard that Kavanagh personally oversaw product arrivals in the UK and negotiated the distribution of batches among regional groups. The NCA labeled him a Level A coordinator, a designation for high-threat figures. The prosecution sought a 25-year sentence. In April 2022, the court sentenced him to 21 years. The judge emphasized, "You were not just part of a criminal organization. You ran it. You made decisions that brought weapons and drugs into the country. The consequences of those choices ruined hundreds of lives." Post-sentencing, a second wave of raids hit addresses in Ireland and Spain. Investigators confirmed Kavanagh's ties to a Dubai cell managing the Kinahan Cartel's financial interests. This cell facilitated transfers to accounts in the UAE, Qatar, and Latin America. It was also revealed that some profits were invested in luxury real estate, villas in Marbella, apartments in Dubai, commercial properties in London. These assets were seized during the investigation. In 2022, the UK's Proceeds of Crime Agency began confiscating Kavanagh's assets, totaling over £1.5 million, including cars, watches, jewelry, and cash. By 2023, a dossier linked to Kavanagh listed at least 40 potential beneficiaries and intermediaries, including figures from other high-profile drug and weapons cases. Kavanagh's conviction sent British and Irish authorities on the offensive. His arrest was a turning point. The first time in years a structure controlling drug and weapons flows to the UK was leaderless. But instead of a lull, a new phase began. The investigation grew international. Logistics companies used for smuggling came under scrutiny. Several were registered in Eastern Europe, with accounts in Estonia and Lithuania, and offices listed in London that didn't physically exist. These firms handled shipments with forged customs declarations. Simultaneously, efforts focused on unraveling the financial network. The Economic Crime Unit traced transfer chains between banks in the UAE, Switzerland, and the UK. On the surface, these were investments, loans, and dividends. In reality, they laundered drug sale proceeds. Several intermediaries handling deal accounting were arrested. One testified that Kavanagh's network processed at least £2 million monthly, with only a fraction reported for taxes. In Ireland, Garda raided addresses tied to Kavanagh's relatives and other Kinahan Cartel figures. In a Dublin villa, they found a weapons cache and a laptop with encrypted files now under Europol analysis. In Spain, authorities probed real estate deals linked to offshore entities suspected of ties to British gangs. Accounts worth over €7 million were frozen, with authorities planning confiscation requests via Interpol. The NCA also examined the cartel's internal structure. Kavanagh's arrest sparked a reshuffling of roles, with previously low-profile figures stepping up. Investigators believe the power vacuum led to internal conflicts, resulting in strong-arm talks, threats, arsons, and attacks on rival logistics firms' employees. Amid this, the UK Home Office began revising organized crime strategies, proposing amendments to laws on offshore company oversight, enhanced asset freezing powers, and stronger tax authority intelligence agency collaboration. Yet despite the investigation's scope and seized assets, experts remain cautious. Kavanagh was just one node. The Kinahan Cartel persists, though its UK arm is weakened. The open question, who will take his place? Thomas "Bomber" Kavanagh's story is not just about one criminal's fall, it's a mirror reflecting how modern organized crime has adapted, building transnational roots, legitimizing profits, and embedding itself nearly invisibly in the global economy. Kavanagh wasn't a public figure. He didn't stage flashy violence, flaunt wealth, or leave loud traces. That's what made him dangerous. He operated systematically on a grand scale, with calculated precision. His structure thrived on discipline, codes, shell companies, and isolation. And it worked for years. But technology, international cooperation, and communication slip-ups dismantled what seemed unbreakable. EncroChat, offshore trails, intermediaries, all pieced together a puzzle law enforcement had assembled for a decade. Now Kavanagh is in prison, his assets seized, his network under scrutiny. But the cartel he served endures. Though its UK operations took a hit, experts say it's only a temporary setback. Money, interests, and connections at this level don't vanish easily. This case underscores the importance of international collaboration, timely analysis, and technological savvy. It also reminds us, the new generation of crime isn't street gangs with bats. It's corporations with lawyers, logisticians, and accountants. The question isn't whether the next coordinator will be caught. It's how long they'll operate before hitting the headlines. Kavanagh's conviction may mark the end of one chapter, but the story of Britain's fight against international organized crime is far from over. New names emerge. New routes are built. The systems adapt. What remains is the same question. How many others are still operating just like him, in silence, in shadow, and just out of reach?